The Action 2 and the GO3S are the smallest high-quality action cameras you can buy. There's not really anything else like these out there, so if you need a 4K wearable POV cam, you're probably wondering which of these to buy. And as someone who has used all of the Go's and the Action 2 almost every day for the past couple of years, I think I can give you a pretty good idea of the strengths and weaknesses of each of these cameras. The Action 2 is made from aluminium, and in terms of build quality and aesthetics, in my opinion, it represents the pinnacle of action camera design. It's absolutely gorgeous. That beauty comes at a cost though. It scratches easily and will dent when dropped onto a hard surface. The bottom module is nothing more than a battery extender and an SD card reader. The actual camera itself is fully contained and absolutely tiny. And despite its small size, they managed to include a bright, high-resolution display. To this day, I'm amazed at what the engineers accomplished, especially given the specs that hide behind that anodized metal exterior. And if you want to see yourself while filming, you can buy the version with the dual screen. The GO3S is made from plastic, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels solid and dense, it doesn't scratch easily, and it's a lot more forgiving when dropped. It feels high quality, just not in such an impressive way. The camera itself is even smaller and about 35% lighter than the Action 2. The front lower portion acts as a single button, and I find it easier to accidentally press the button on the GO3S compared to the Action 2. Because of the way it protrudes out of the Action pod, whether it's in my pocket or my bag, I usually get home with some videos of blackness, or I start to feel my pocket getting very hot because the camera's been recording in there accidentally. When the camera's in the Action pod, the display flips up for vlogging and selfies, and a major advantage of the GO3S is that the camera transmits a live video feed back to the pod. The range is quite short, but the Action 2 has no such feature. The Action 2 vibrates when pressed, so I always know when I've hit record or stopped recording, and it doesn't disturb anyone around me. The GO3S has no vibration, only beeps. The main reason I use these cameras so much is for hands-free POV shots. They're so small I can clip them to my hat, wear them on my forehead, or stick them to my shirt, and as such, they can get knocked around and dropped a fair bit. The Action 2 comes with a very rugged case, which makes it much less slippery to hold, and extends the recording time by activating a higher thermal cutoff temperature. But in the case, it's significantly larger and twice as heavy as the GO3S, which means more mass in an impact when dropped. It also has a much larger lens protector which isn't removable, and a large glass display on the back. These two surfaces are vulnerable to breakage and scratching. The GO3S has no built-in display, and not only is the lens protector a much smaller target to hit in an impact, but it's also removable and cheap to replace. So the GO3S is much less likely to be destroyed in a fall. Having dropped my older Go3 many times, as well as my original Action 2, the Go3 barely had a scratch on it, while the Action 2 fared much worse. Both cameras come with magnetic neck pendants that let you stick them to your shirt. The Action 2 has the large display on the back, which makes for a more complicated and less secure attachment method. This little piece sticks to the shirt, and then the camera hangs from that. The Go3S is simpler and much more secure. I know this because my original Action 2 has fallen off my shirt several times, and at this very moment, tragically, it's resting at the bottom of a very deep lake, because it got nudged off my shirt when kayaking with my dog. I did attempt a rescue mission with a very large magnet and 75 feet of rope, but it was unsuccessful. I bought another one last week so that I could finally finish this video, and because I feel like I can't live without it. The Go3S, on the other hand, well, I've never knocked any of the Go's off my shirt. The Go3S comes with the strongest magnetic pendant yet, and that, combined with being a much lighter camera than the Action 2, means it's a lot harder to dislodge. I did come up with a couple of solutions to make the Action 2 more secure when wearing it. Here's where it gets interesting. The footage looks good on both. They both have pretty good dynamic range. Colors are quite similar on these cameras, and auto white balance is reliable on both. But the Go3S footage looks sharper, less noisy, and generally just cleaner than the Action 2. I thought the Action 2 was maybe just a bit blurry at close range, but even when farther away, it's just not very sharp compared to the Go3S. There's obviously some software sharpening and noise reduction happening on the Go3S, but it's done so well that it results in better looking footage. Also, I find that the Go3S optics produce less lens flare than the Action 2. But where the Action 2 really shines is with its video specs. The Go3S can only do 4K 30, that's as high as it goes in the normal video mode. The Action 2 can record 4K 60 and right up to 4K 120 and even 1080p 240, which makes it a much more capable camera for slow motion. Both cameras offer slow motion. The Go3S is quite limited though. There's no 60 FPS anywhere, but it can do 100 FPS if you drop the resolution down to 2.7K and 200 FPS if you go down to 1080p, but I don't recommend that last one. When filming in slow motion, the Go3S doesn't seem to have any stabilization. There is the ability to stabilize the shots afterwards by processing them in Insta360 software, but that's going to cost you time and a significant crop and loss of resolution. The Action 2 can record in a much wider range of frame rates, including 4K 60 right up to 4K 120 in normal video mode, and you get stabilization built in too. It can also do 1080p 240 for 8x slow motion. You can also view the slow-mo shots on the camera, whereas if you record slow-mo on the Go3S, you have to download the files and watch them on another device. In my opinion though, the colors in this shot look a lot better on the Go3S. The Action 2 tends to lean towards the green and yellow, but it has a much wider field of view. The Go 3 didn't have the widest field of view, and the newer 3S is narrower still. This is good in one sense, as it's a more natural looking field of view for vlogging and general day-to-day filming, but for action shots, you might find the Action 2 with its wider FOV more useful. In this shot, both cameras are set as wide as they go, with stabilization turned off to get as wide as possible, and you can see just how much wider the Action 2 can go. Again though, in my opinion, the colors look nicer on the Go 3S. But there's something the Action 2 can do that is so valuable to me that I use it this way all the time. It can record in 4:3 aspect ratio. This extends what you can see in the top and bottom and brings a lot more into frame. So why is this useful? Well, it's because when I'm wearing it on my shirt and doing anything with my hands, this more square aspect ratio makes sure things aren't out of frame because it captures so much more of the top and bottom. And then in post, I can crop to 16:9 and move it up or down and show what I want to show. When wearing the Go3S on my shirt or my hat, sometimes I don't have it pointed in just the right direction and I miss what I'm actually trying to show. This time the Insta is set to Mega, which is a bit wider, but I'll have to process that in the Insta360 Studio. It's still not as wide as the Action 2. They both have very good stabilization, but the Action 2 offers more options. The Go3S has horizon leveling, but only up to 10 degrees, which helps, but you really can't tilt it very much before you lose level. The Action 2 can keep level up to 45 degrees in 4K and 360 degrees in 2.7K. It's not a total loss for the Go3S though, because if you record in free-frame video mode and you're willing to process the files in Insta360 software, you can get 360-degree horizon leveling that way. This is a really dark location, and with both cameras set on auto, they both do a pretty good job. The Go3S has a low light jitter reduction mode which can be turned on, and that reduces the smudging effect caused by digital stabilization at the cost of a darker image. The Action 2 doesn't have that feature, but all the feature really does is increase the shutter speed to reduce motion blur, and you can get that same effect on the Action 2 just by manually increasing the shutter speed. And when I did that here, I think the Action 2 actually produced just a slightly smoother result. Here's an audio comparison with the Go3S in its pod and the Action 2 attached to the display module, which by the way has better audio than the power module. This is how the audio sounds on the Go3S, and this is how the audio sounds on the Action 2. Do you have any plans for the weekend? You going anywhere nice? Do you have any plans for the weekend? Are you going anywhere nice? Here's an overheating comparison at 4K 30. Indoors, when both are outside of their pods or modules, I get 10.5 minutes for the Action 2 and 22 minutes for the Go3S. But the Action 2 comes with this case that dissipates heat, and it also has a little magnet which activates a higher temperature cutoff, and while it's in that case, overheating just isn't an issue for me. It'll keep recording all the way until the battery dies, which is about 41 minutes. When connected to their pods or modules, both cameras run without overheating until their batteries die. I think they're both great cameras, and for POV work, for me they're the best you can get. I can't say one is better than the other because they each have strengths and weaknesses in different areas. The footage I'm getting from the Go3S more often than not looks better, sharper, cleaner, and with nicer looking colours than the Action 2. The Go3S is easier and more secure to wear on a shirt, and the wireless video link is quite useful. The Action 2 on the other hand has a much wider FOV, more resolution and frame rate options, better slow motion, slow-mo stabilization is done in camera, and it has a display built into the camera itself, which means I can more easily change settings and playback files directly on the camera. If I could boil it all down, I'd say get the Go3S if you want better looking footage and the wireless video link and a camera that's harder to damage, or get the Action 2 if you want much wider footage for POV work, more frame rate and resolution options, and better slow motion. If you found this useful or interesting, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to subscribe for more videos like this, that would be great too. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.